All right, it seems that I am online for this wonderful. What day is today? Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. Oh, where's my phone? Quickly go get my phone. So I'm here, people. Oh, my mic is working today. I see my good friend Tori sent me. Right, Tori, thank you so much for this. If you're online. Eventually, people will come online. There is no one yet here, but they will come online. Where do I go for this? There was something they said I must do. Yeah, where's focus right? There, the nonsense starts again. Like the devil is always there. So it's connected, that's connected. Now where is my microphone? Oh dear. Right, so there is someone online. Welcome, 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 welcome. I am just waiting for one or two more people. So while we're waiting, I normally start off my sessions with some interesting stories that I come across on my daily basis. So today, for those people who doesn't know, I am poor. I'm feeling the crunch of this current economic slowdown turn. I don't know if Trump's tariffs have been successful thus far, but I'm feeling it, and I know I'm not the only one who feels it. So I have to take a taxi. The point I'm trying to make, I have to take a taxi on a daily basis to get to work and even go. So I cannot leave work at 6, so the stream have to finish before 6, because then it will get dark. Then I have to go through a taxi rank and negotiate my safety through that. So when I'm normally in the taxis, I get the most interesting stories and things that is happening. So today, while we on my way to campus, I was sitting in the second row, and it was a Pentec taxi. So for those of you who doesn't know a Pentec taxi, it's those taxis that you get onto at Belleville, and then they go to Belhar. They either go to Extension or Obelhar, but they have to go past Pentec. So they will say Obelhar Pentec. So that's the call of the taxi. And then you get into those taxis, and then you on your merry way to one of those universities. So the taxi passes there. Now, the difference when it comes to a Pentec taxi in particular is that they don't play when it comes to the number of people that they put into the taxi. So I got spoiled over the past couple of months, because I've decided I'm only going to take a Mowbray taxi, because the Mowbray taxi also put me next to the gate. I don't have to cross the road, so it's safety, and they do not overload. So they only cover the seats, and then they pick up people along the way. so stand. But Pentec taxis or Obela taxis, extension taxis doesn't play. They put 20 people in the taxi. So the back seat takes 4. Then there's like a 3-seater. They put a seat there, a makeshift seat. And then the seat in front of me, another 3-seater with a seat. And then the seat in front is also 4. But then 2 in front, 1 behind the driver, and then 2 were standing. 21 people in the taxi today. I was a little bit impressed with 21 people in the taxi, but it's one of those experiences that is not some of the best experiences. Now, here's the thing: when a taxi is that full and people are so quiet because they're either going to school or to work, they are normally quiet. So when someone is telling a story, especially an elder auntie, then normally it goes on and on and on. And at the back, I had someone like that because the taxi was not playing music. So at one point, I actually felt that the driver must just leave me next to the road, and then I would walk, because I couldn't take the story anymore. Not that the story wasn't interesting, like she was dishing out some of the family secrets. It's just, it reminds me too much of the stories in the community, and some of the trauma that comes from these particular stories, especially when the auntie is dishing. So ladies and gentlemen, those of you who have never been on a taxi or are adventurous enough, I would suggest that you guys take a taxi from Belleville to Obela, or just take a taxi. That would be a great one. So Tori is sending me messages. I'll get to them now. So I see I have some people online. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's not the normal time that you guys are normally available online, but it's one of those conversations I needed to have today. If I'm keeping it longer, then the story would not be interesting. I would not be interested, and I would not be able to tell it with the zest that I'm currently have. So this morning, I normally go to bed around about 10, so I can get up early, go for a jog, and then start my day. So this morning, when I woke up, I go like many people. The first thing, you open your eyes, you don't pray, you go online, and you see what people has been up to. So I saw that an article came up. Now I would like to share that article, and then the whole conversation on colored people is flowing from that specific article. So I got this particular article that was shared by some of my colleagues online, especially on social media. And this, in the title of the opinion piece is actually an opinion piece read as follow: being a colored woman in South Africa in 2025. This opinion piece was written by Prof. Frantz, a professor at the University of the Western Cape, and she shared her experience as a colored woman navigating the space of higher education in South Africa, which I found quite interesting. If we consider, so I have a little bit of background information when it comes to what is happening in higher education, but I know that Prof. Frantz has been overlooked in several positions. So I appreciated this particular article because it gives me insight into the conversation and the thinking behind this particular question about race, the colored identity in South Africa. So if you haven't read this particular article yet, I would strongly suggest that you read it, because it opens a debate, and it's always good for debate. But I want to point to something that she said in an opinion piece, and this is kind of the point where I start the conversation today. And then I'll navigate us through this conversation. If you would like to join in, just drop a comment in the chat, and I'll get to you. If you have my number and you want to call in and have your say, you can just send me a WhatsApp, and I will call you, and you can have your say live. Now, what I want to point out is something that she said in the opinion piece, and that is that if you are not the right kind of black or the right kind of woman, your presence is either tokenized or ignored. So she raises two things. She raises race and gender. And that intersectionality means where those two crosses, you will find many of the various oppressive systems in the world. Now, being a person that is colored and a person who is a woman, she expected more from the current dispensation when it comes to law, the transformation policies, but her experience thus far doesn't prove to be that specific case. Now, the one thing, and I earlier today had a conversation with one of my friends, is that there's this thing in not just in higher education, but everywhere in society, when it comes to women in particular, then women always have to be kind of deputy or deputize. They cannot be the CEO of a company. They cannot be the HOD of the department. They can't be the director. They cannot be a rector, but they are good in the position as a deputy, assistant director, deputy director, a CEO, not a CEO, but something like an assistant CEO, but not even a CEO, somewhere lower in the level, assistant HOD. So you get all of this, deputy, dean. So women in most cases are deputized. But if you go also into the other sectors, like the work, the commercial sector, then you also see that women are deputized there, but also then race starts playing a more prominent role in the deputization of people. Now, what she says here is important, is that it's tokenized, and sometimes even ignored. So, based on her experience, she would sit in this boardroom, and then it's tokenized. It's like, we just want you here, so you are a token. You can be here, but you're not set. And then sometimes in that meeting, you are completely ignored. Your take or whatever you want to bring across is not of value for the institution or whatever there. So that's the one part. But the thing that stood out for me, and especially the title of the opinion piece saying a colored woman in 2025. Now, what she mentioned here is that being the right kind of black, not being the right kind of black. And there's a sentiment that that we need to have with regards to race in South Africa, and with regards to the types of uncomfortable conversations that we currently doesn't want to have in South Africa. So the question that I then have is whether that is a situation where colored women are tokenized, they are ignored, and in many cases they are not considered to be the right kind of black. Now, from personal experience, I know this might be the case because I know of institutions who appoint either white men over black women, or they just appoint anyone but a black or a colored woman in that particular position. So I know this from first-hand experience. So in the article, the opinion piece that she put, she also leaves a very important question. For those people that was joining me now, it's this particular question, this particular article. This article was, or this opinion piece was written by Prof. Jose Frantz. Now, in that article, opinion piece, she asked a very important question, and it's from this question that I want to start a more general conversation. If you would like to enter the conversation also, please feel free to leave a chat or call, give me a WhatsApp so I can call you. So the question that Prof. Frantz asked is, how do I fight for true equity, one that acknowledges all complexities of race in South Africa? So the important part of that that I would like to highlight for me is the complexities of race in South Africa, especially the complexities of race when it comes to colored and black people and Indian people in South Africa. Those people who in many cases are grouped together as black. So I have a number of questions I want to go through that kind of unpacks the complexities of race in South Africa. So the first question I have is, how do we generally in society look at race? Now, I'm saying generally, so it means the person who doesn't have university educated, or like the lawyer friends of mine say, indigent person, the everyday person. How do they look at race? And I know from experience, from my family and my friends, is there's just an error. I just quickly want to fix the error. They say YouTube is not responding. I just want to fix that quickly. All right, so it's back on. Now, I hope so. I really hope so. So ladies and gentlemen, if it's not there, I'm recording it, so then we can also record it. But with that being said, the everyday person, based on my experience, they look at race through a racial or biological lens. So they look at this apartheid difference or colonial differences that was bestowed on us to categorize and divide people. So you look a specific way, your hair is a specific way, you sound a specific way, and for this particular reason, you are this particular race. So it's based on that biological argument that the colonial and apartheid state created something of race where white people are considered the superior being and every person below them, so every other race. And in South Africa, they even went further. They put those race in terms of a hierarchy, saying that white people is on top, black people is at the bottom, followed by colored people, then Indian people, and you have white people as the apex racial group in South Africa. So that is the racial lens through which people are thinking. So when people normally think of race, of a black person, a colored person, then they think of those groups of people in terms of biology, because skin color and all of those things are linked to the discrimination or the description of a group of people. So that's how we normally think of it. And that is firmly a legacy of apartheid. But there is a different way of looking at race. And this conversation of race is quite an old conversation on the continent. And one of the people that provided a different view to race was Mahmoud Mamdani. He's a Ugandan historian, and he is of Indian descent. So at a point in Uganda's history, Indian people were expelled from the country. They were not welcome in that specific country. So Mamdani, in this particular context, started thinking about race and started crafting a really good answer to the biological notion of race. And that is that we must consider race as a political identity created for political purposes. So, and what he demonstrated, that there is no biological basis for race. People are not different based on biological difference, that you can't put a race into that. People are different because they are politically grouped into different groups. So people are made colored, they are made black, they are made white, they're made Indian, they are made different nationalities. You are South African, you are Namibia, but 100 years ago, Namibia in its current form didn't exist, and the same with Botswana and Namibia. So those are a nation state that was crafted after the end of World War II, Africa's independence, and from that, new national identities became. So identities at the root of it is quite political. So that is what Mahmoud Mamdani put forward. So if that's the case, how do we look at race specifically? How do we have to look at when it comes to South Africa? Do we look at race in the biological sense, that there is an inherent or innate difference between groups of people that determine their intellectual or cultural abilities, or do we look at it as a political identity? So those of you who had the opportunity to buy my book, The Attempted Erasure of the Khoikhoi and San, there's a whole chapter dedicated on explaining the formation of the so-called colored identity and how flawed it was. And I trace its existence from 1828 with Ordinance 50 up until present day. So there's a good book that any of you guys can read. So I go in deep to discuss it. Now, this is my particular view. I view race as political identity. So I agree with Mahmoud Mamdani. Race was created to push a particular political identity in not just in South Africa, but across the world. So that is an important vantage point from which I look at race. So that's the first point that I want to make. So for me, then, the black and so-called colored racial identities, for me, is political identities with specific sets of politics, a politics that is as old as colonial, that was enhanced during apartheid and have a different dimension in post-apartheid South Africa. And it's that politics that we currently are facing and interacting in South Africa. So that is so that is the one thing that I want to highlight, is that it is a political identity for me, created for political purposes. So this particular racial categories is also created for specific political purposes in post-apartheid South Africa. Not just created, they were continued from the colonial era into the present. So there's specific political purposes that these identities have to create. So what do we do? What is the types of politics that these identities, especially when it comes to the political landscape of colored people and black people in South Africa? Now, that specific politics is with regards to resources and opportunities, or more specifically put, the politics is with regards to a level of recognition. There's a group of people who wants a level of recognition that they are a marginalized group in South Africa, and that they were oppressed in the same ways as other indigenous groups in South Africa. It's also a matter of representation. Representation meaning is that I do not see people that look like me, that have a specific culture and a specific background in places of decision making. So I do not see a level of representation. I see a number of people making choices and decisions on behalf of me. Now, I can go all political science into this particular argument, but I don't want to get into the theoretical debates around race and representation, and how representation and accountability and participation. I don't want to get into it. I just want to tell you the politics that exist at the local level. There is a politics that exists that talks about representation. It's also a politics about inclusion, inclusion in a broader society. So if we talk about inclusion, then we're also talking about exclusion. So it presupposes, or it says that if there is a strong urge for people to be included, then there is a group of people on the outside. Now, then there is equal opportunity. There's people who want equal opportunity when it comes to their counterparts. There's a number of people who needs redress, and there is socio-economic realities of both these groups. Now, all of these things, these points that I've highlighted, the political landscape for black and colored people, this is the politics that we see on a daily basis. Both of them struggle with socio-economic issues. They are some of the poorest in South Africa. You can go look at the stats. The living standards of these two groups are some of the lowest. When it comes to political redress, especially in terms of the big land question, then colored people, especially those who are from Khoikhoi and San descent, have been excluded from the conversation. They do not have the same levels of land accessible to them as many of the other indigenous groups have. So many of the other indigenous groups have traditional authorities where they have access to land. In the colored community, you don't see that level of access to land. And especially amongst the Khoikhoi and San people, they are some of the groups that have been the longest dispossessed in South Africa. But then there's also stuff about equal opportunity. Both black and colored women are fighting on a daily basis to get a level of equal opportunity in South Africa. That's in terms of employment, that is in terms of economic opportunities, that is in every aspect of society, even when it comes to education. And the same with representation. Colored and black women are some of those groups of people who doesn't have the same level of representation in higher levels of institutions and companies in South Africa if they compare it to their counterparts of white women. So that's just the reality. So this is the politics and where the politics of these two groups intercept, and that's the landscape. Now, the interesting question that I have is, why is these two groups currently competing with one another in South Africa? And the answer that I got to, it is a crab in a bucket situation, meaning that there is so few opportunities for these two groups, and because the marginalization and the oppression was so much, the competition amongst these groups for those few opportunities, given the history of marginalization, increased the competition of them in society, even given that they are on the lowest stratosphere in South Africa, the South African society. So it's a crab in a bucket situation. The one that wants to escape pulls the other one down. So that's the sad reality amongst the two. Now I know there's a number of people would say, but Jacob, that cannot be it, because there is racism between colored and black people in South Africa, and that racism might also lead to situations where certain groups of people are excluded into positions. More simply put, when a black woman applies for a position in a predominantly colored dominated space, then that person might not get it. And the same vice versa, where colored women apply to a black dominated space, they most probably cannot get it. So that is what I'm trying to say, is that we cannot ignore that there is racist sentiments between both these groups in South Africa. And this is where I want to share some of the experiences of my black female colleagues at certain university spaces, especially when they're at institutions that is dominated by colored people, and especially where colored woman is in the position. In many cases, these black female colleagues of mine do not get the opportunity. They are overlooked, and it's not one. It's not a specific one that I'm referring to. I know many of my colleagues that work at different universities, and they are black women, that opportunities was withheld from them because they are black. And you see the same thing happening with colored women. Exactly the same thing when they enter those similar spaces, that opportunities is withheld from them. So once again, that competition is there. Now, I want to do something live so that you guys can see, because now I want to get into stereotypes and how colored people in generally in South Africa is considered. So just bear with me. So this is my Google, and in it I'm going to type something. So Google, I'm going to type colored people. And from this, you can see nowadays we have AI, and Google's AI give us answers for everything. Oh my gosh, they're so good. So you see, they only even break it down for you. In South Africa, colored is a specific racial classification to describe people of mixed ancestry, often with roots in European, African, and Asian descent. So that's the one thing. There's one view, the dominant view that Google is giving you, is that colored people are the bastards of everyone else in South Africa. They don't put it that crush way, but if you have to translate it in normal terms, it's exactly that. Then you would see people have written on this, the situation of colored people, colors of South Africa, and then you get pictures here. You see Tyler there, you see Trevor Noah there, then you see people, there's a colored Wikipedia page, then you see this one YouTuber that put a gangster with tattoos on it. So that's just from that specific the front page, that you get all of that information. So it informs a specific stereotype. Now if you go into the news, and you see there's also been written news on it 2 hours ago, DA report offensive podcast on Human Rights Commission. It might be something to do with colored people. Podcast faces backlash, derogatory remarks about colored people. So there's an article about the particular issue that we're dealing on this podcast. Degrading podcasters under fire for calling colored people incestuous and crazy. So I've also seen this particular clip online recently where these people are saying that colored people screw their sisters and cousins. So there is no particular difference. And it was said with so much truth and veracity, and there was so much fun on that podcast. People were laughing and have a good time. 2024, there was an article, colored South Africans are all but erased from history textbooks. Then Fanon's black skin, white mask, colors in South Africa, and it just goes on. Liam Jacobs, Trump's colorblind America. This is just, you get all of those politics just from this page one of the news. Now, there's other way that we can look at this. If you go to images, the stereotypical images that you get of colored people. So once again, you have your celebrities there. Then you have a black and white photo, and then we get to the type of gangsters, tattooed image that people have. You have this particular image that paints them a particular way. You have this particular image that paints them a particular way, and it just go on and on and on and on. The stereotypes. And we can do the same uh, about black people. So for example, if you do this, black people, South Africa, and you entered, we can go to Google, and this is what Google is saying. Black people constitute the majority of the population, with 81.7% of the total population, according to the latest estimates. So the term black in this context refer to individuals whose identity as indigenous Africans, and that's a particular the emphasis in this particular instance is that black people are indigenous, and when we looked at the definition of colored people, they were not indigenous. They was this bastards from everyone else. And then we can look at the numbers of what is happening here. But let's look at news. So if we look at news, then are white Afrikaners at risk in South Africa? Not really, most say. Now this is important because this is when you put in Google, you put in black people, suddenly white Afrikaners and their safety comes up. Now what this particular picture does, or this news article does, or the perception is when you read that, is that black people is always the violent figure that is threatening the safety of white people in South Africa. So that's the stereotype that is commonly there. And colonialism and apartheid stripped black South Africans of their land and labor rights, which is true, but it's also true towards many colored people from whatever group they were, whether they were Khoisan, whether whatever from the enslaved population. Some of them were landowners, and even their land was taken. Most farmers in South Africa are black. So there's another thing when we think about farmers in South Africa, we normally don't think about it. So this whole Trump Kali Kriel debacle actually proved the other way around, and it just goes on. So let's quickly look at images, because I think my time will be running out. So these are beautiful pictures, except these ones where people are using children. I don't like the way colored and black children are just photographed. So the experience of these photos is a little bit, or just from me, I might be wrong, a little bit more positive than that of color people. So from that, what I want to say is that what you see is that stereotypes is available, and the stereotypes is being developed so that you can have a monolithic political view, and use that monolithic political view to get certain political aims of a specific political party, to get it across and quickly and easy. So the stereotype helps political parties and politicians to push a specific political agenda. So both colored and black people are these violent figures, especially colored and black men as these violent figures. So white people are not safe, so we have to protect white people from black and colored men. That is a common view. And there's, and you can get many of the stereotypical tropes, and when it comes to elections and all of these things, you can also say that colored people doesn't vote for black people, they vote mostly for the DA, and you see all of these stereotypes are working. So if we look at the latter stereotype, for example, that colored people doesn't vote for the ANC or that specific vote. Oh, my camera is not dead. You edit the browser source. Okay, I didn't edit. Okay, but there's an article by Prof. Cheryl Africa where she in detail explained that that's not the truth. The election results of the Western Cape is more complex than just saying that it's a colored question. If you get more colored people to vote, then they will win the election. So it's a bit more complex. So that is one of those tropes that you have to kind of undo systematically. And then you have this particular trope, which is it's written by Kamisa. Oh, it's black. Let me quickly. Did you hear that? It's black. Let me quickly make it a white background. Once again, did it change? Oh, it's not interact. Oh, it's still. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the background to be white. Let me see. Oh, there's no background. Damn it. But there is a if you on LinkedIn, then you can go online and you can look at this particular article. It's written by people at the Kamisa Museum in Cape Town at the Castle of Good Hope, and it's this kind of statement that someone made that colored people do not belong in Africa. So once again, they considered as these bastards. Now I'm saying all of this just to bring a specific a point across. The point that I'm trying to bring across is that there is a progressive way prior to 1993, the adoption of the interim constitution, in 1996, the adoption of the 1996 constitution. There was a progressive notion towards the generic black person in South Africa, and that's the Biko notion of black. So the question that many then ask, some people might ask, if you consider the statement, and I'll get to that statement now, colored people do not belong in Africa, is that can we consider colored people as black people in South Africa? Now that answer is already resolved. Yes, they are black people. They are treated as black people in South Africa, but it's a little more complex than that. So if we look, for example, at employment in South Africa, then you have not a generic black category that we see in the Biko sense. So they specifically look at the specific racial categories like your colored, black, Indian, white, and there's specific employment equity targets. Every company, every institution have to meet specific targets. And many of the targets, if you look at these companies' records and statements, if you look at the equity targets in the reports that they put out, that they share with the Department of Labor every year, then you would see that many of these companies meet the targets at the lower and the middle levels. But when you get to the upper echelons of the company, then or the institution or the government department, then you see that criteria or that equity targets is not met, and it looks a specific way. And this is where Prof. Frantz is trying to make a distinction. Her distinction or her experience is from a boardroom level. So boardrooms across South Africa need to be reformed, and in that spaces we would like, or I personally would like to see more black and colored women in those particular spaces where they are in places of decision making. We have more than 20 universities in South Africa, and I think about 5 to 6 of those rectors are women. The majority of them, all of them, are men. And we can look at the deputy vice chancellors. We can look at the deans. When it comes to those particular institutions, you don't see levels of transformation there. So transformation is good, or people think about transformation at the lower levels, but when it comes at the deeper level, then you don't see it, or the higher level where it matters, where representation matters, where recognition matters, all of those types of politics that I shared, then they do not consider it. Now, I've seen it and I've experienced it where certain institutions can look at 2 qualified colored women and decide that we are not comfortable of employing these 2 colored women, any of the 2 of them in the upper position of this institution. We would rather go for a white man. So that is the experience and the level that colored women like Prof. Jose Frantz are talking about. This level of tokenism and the level of ignoring people completely, a specific group of people in South Africa. And it's that intersection where they completely ignore. So in terms of employment equity, there is a real case that we have to look. Now, I've watched many of the portfolio committee on higher education and the work that they're doing and going to specific universities, and the statistics that comes from those universities doesn't show that there's any level of transformation, and there is clearly not spaces for colored women in many of these institutions. There is spaces for other people in those institutions, but when it comes specific to colored women, then there is no spaces in those institutions. So employment equity and the transformation of it is an important thing that we have to consider. So in that specific sense, when it comes to employment equity, colored people are not considered as black people, they're considered as colored people. But I've seen in some instances where institutions, high institutions, have put them towards a black equity target, which is quite misleading. So in that sense, I can agree with Prof. Frantz on that in there is cases where you are not the right kind of black when it comes to specific positions. Even though you're qualified, even if you're part of the designated groups, you are not what they are looking for. So I have a number of comments here. I see it. I will get into those comments now, and then we can have a conversation. I see also a number of text messages. Let me see if any of the people wants to Nope, nobody wants to call. But a good friend of mine sent me. I'm not gonna expose her here because I didn't ask her. Sent me a number of TikTok clips where she also say that there is across things that she comes across towards racism towards colored people. But then I also know that there is a lot of racism from black people, from colored people towards black people. So these two groups constantly compete for a little bit of resources in society. Now, finally, I want to kind of get towards the end of this conversation with something that she said, her answer. In the question that she put is, how do I fight for true equity, one that acknowledges the complexities of race in South Africa? Her answer to that was, this is not about erasing the African experience. It is about broadening our understanding of what it means to be historically marginalized. It's about acknowledging the unique pain, resilience, and identity of the colored community. I completely have to agree with her on that specific matter. Part of the colored community is a group of people that is Khoikhoi and San people. And the Khoikhoi and San people are the indigenous group in South Africa that were classified as colored since 1828. They resisted that colored classification since the first classification, and they've preserved their ancestry, their indigenous knowledge, everything that any other indigenous group have. They have been preserving and fighting for that. But universities have erased them so that they can appropriate many of the artifacts, rock art, and even the indigenous knowledge for their own selfish gain. So universities, and you can read my book, please do read my book where I explain it. Universities write this group of people out of existence, saying that this group of people doesn't exist anymore. But people like Prof. Henry Bredenkamp, Yvette Abrams, and many others started writing and saying that, hold on, this is an issue of classification. We are here, and this is our culture, this is our traditions, this is our knowledge systems. We are a people. We are just erased from history because of this classification. So there is a shared pain, a shared resilience that has to be acknowledged by other indigenous groups in South Africa. Now, for that to happen, there is a condition, however, to that, is that many of the colored people in South Africa have a complex ancestry that links them to different indigenous groups in South Africa and on the rest of the continent. And many younger colored people nowadays is questioning this meta-narrative of the mixed ancestry line. And they're saying, we are more than that. We have indigenous ancestry and we would like to know. And in many cases, the parents cannot explain this to them because even them felt ashamed to associate with my black grandfather or my black grandmother. So if people, this colored people, that is so racist towards black people in some instances, if you start digging in your ancestry, then you would see that you are much black and indigenous as many of the groups that you are racist towards. So there is a condition to it. We all have the shared pain in ancestry when it comes to colored and black people. But then colored people cannot think of them as exceptional and that they are better than black people in South Africa. think about the other groups as people that you share an ancestry with. Learn an indigenous language, whether it is the Khoikhoi language, like your different Nama or San languages, or try another language, like isiZulu, isiXhosa, Setswana, and you will get a greater understanding, because when you learn someone else's language, you are able to speak to them, you are able to understand their culture, and you start vibing at the same length. So, and this is what I'm doing. I have started taking lessons on speaking isiZulu, because I've realized if I can master isiZulu, then a big part of the languages in South Africa I can speak. And after that, try just one other language like Sesotho, because then you will be able to speak another set of languages in South Africa. But it's up to us. It's us to teach our children. It's up to us to reach out, and it's up to us to become tolerable but also interested in our neighbors, because our neighbors are not just the people living next to us, but it's the people that I'm sharing an ancestry with. So that is my appeal to colored people in South Africa. Go and look at your ancestry, especially at your indigenous ancestry, and you will be pleasantly surprised. And after you find your indigenous ancestry, you will feel much more at home in South Africa. So I do agree with Prof. Frantz on this particular matter. We do have a unique pain resilience in this particular community. It's a history of marginalized, historically marginalized. I agree completely with it. But we have to understand that historical marginalization. We have to understand our ancestry. We need to understand where we come from and where we belong. It's not just about a specific, maybe white ancestry that you've been told, or this belief that you are a bastard of a specific group. You are more than that. There's a beautiful indigenous ancestry that you can embrace and you can be proud of. So I do agree with Prof. Frantz's statement and take on this particular matter. But mine, I have almost like a final thought on the matter. The one thing about the colored identity, it is extremely complex. And like I've mentioned, we share a common identity with many other indigenous groups in South Africa and the rest of the continent. We are not monolithic people. So you will find amongst these people, people of Khoikhoi and San descent. You will find people of Malay descent. You will find people of Chinese Indian descent. You have people from enslaved backgrounds. You have such a wide variety of different groups of people. So it's not monolithic. So that Google exercise that I showed of how people look at you, it doesn't have to be the case. You can change it. And then finally, the one thing that brings colored and black people together, and I want to always let them remind that many of us do have a shared ancestry. Some doesn't have. But the one thing that all of us have, and that's important, is that we share the same oppression. The same oppressors, and it's that level of marginalization that we have to work towards. So the next time a colored woman walks into the boardroom, I hope that if you are in a position to employ that person and you have listened to this, that you would say, Jacob, you've given me greater understanding. I would buy your book and I would delve deeper into this. So thank you for watching this particular raw and uncut take. But I just want to go through the comments. Quite a good number that I've seen. I love the conversation. So let me just see. I see Sheriff Sanger is online. Family. Alright, so Danielle said the term mix and stress, he feels so uncomfortable. Evolutionary biologists have pretty much debunked any claim of racial purity. Feels silly to cling to such pretentious. I agree. And it's up to us, Danielle, to rewrite it, to write so much on this particular subject so that the analytics of YouTube, or not YouTube, of Google, doesn't use the term mixed ancestry anymore. Danielle also say that she likes how Gayton conveniently positions himself as the savior of colored people with regards to the open chat podcast just in time for the elections. You are onto something, and I'll give you an opportunity to respond more to this, because you are one of the contributors to the Sunday show, to look more into this particular matter, because I've also seen it, is that currently there is this fight for the colored vote in the Western Cape and the Northern Cape. The DA feels like they have a right to this base, and now that PA is, or the Patriotic Alliance, is entering it, they do not feel comfortable with it. But there's a lot more to unpack. Who is this colored people that Gayton want to unify? Then Sherry says, Sharach Sanger, with regards to your book on the indigenous Khoi and San people, do you see them being recognized as a First Nation of South Africa? Now, Sharad, I do not like the politics of First Nation, because if there's a First Nation, then every other group is a foreigner and they have to leave. Now, this First Nation politics is the one that I've been vocal and expressed myself out against, because it's part of that racist remnants of apartheid who exceptionalize colored people in South Africa. So I'm not comfortable with the First Nation, because it comes from a particular colonial school of thought that came from the north into those particular groups to divide and conquer, and to get a foothold into certain practices when it comes to research and how and the benefits that the people from the north can get. So I'm not a big fan of First Nation. I nowadays talk about indigenous groups, various indigenous groups, because you cannot really say who is the first comer, especially if you look at archaeological evidence that there is people that was there before the so-called First Nation even. So even that First Nation that we so commonly refer to is not even the First Nation, if we think about archaeological evidence in the remnants of human history. So it's a contested term that I really do not like. So that's it. That is from my side. Any other questions? Let me see. Yes, Sherrod, the taxi experience is a wonderful thing. I think one day you must try it, and also No, there's no one. Okay, at least people have listened and they've stayed. So, yeah, people have listened and they've stayed. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. May God bless. If you want me to speak onto a matter, just let me know. If you want to appear on my podcast, Abrasive Conversations, let me know. I'm open to have a conversation. I do have screening. I do not speak just to anyone. There is my politics is of such a nature that I have to be careful who I'm speaking to. So, but if you want to be on the podcast, please let me know. I'm open to that. Yeah, that's it. Share this with other people, and I will see you guys in the next episode. May God bless. I'm out.